Hi, let's talk about books. If you haven't been here before and you've just hit the TBR reading tag, thanks for coming along. This is something that we do sometimes. Mainly it's just really bin fire vlogs. But if that is also something you enjoy, stick around. But today we're going to talk about books, and specifically I wanted to do the TBR tag that I found because answering questions about books is fun. It is currently summer in Australia, so I do have the air conditioner on. I make no apologies for not dying in the heat. The sound quality will be a little bit diminished. I say a little bit, like we don't care around here. Let's get into it. Question 1. How do you keep track of your TBR pile? Well, I don't really have a set method. I will mark things as interesting to me on Goodreads and Storygraph. I use both. My links are down below. Sometimes I'll just buy a book. There's the air conditioner kicking in. Sometimes I'll just buy it, although not often. Like if it's in a Kindle Daily Deal and I think, oh, maybe one day, then yes, I will buy it. Mainly I read on Kindle, so that's why. So another way that I track my TBRs is I just download the sample of the book onto my Kindle. I have a collection on my Kindle called TBR, and actually a TBR non-fiction one as well. I keep them separate. So that's actually non-fiction books I really just tend to buy in a physical form because they are so expensive. I may as well just have the real thing that I actually own, is my thought. Plus trying to read references, footnotes and endnotes is way easier in the real thing. But for fiction reading, it's on my Kindle as a sample. It's on my Kindle because I bought it when it was cheap. It's on Storygraph, it's on Goodreads, or sometimes it's in my bullet journal. In my bullet journal, I have this page, TBR, and that will list everything that I think of. So when I'm looking for an idea of what to read next, or if I'm in a bookshop, this is it. If it's something I've pre-ordered, I mark that there. And if I read it, I crossed it off, which I actually have read stuff off this list this year. And yes, I have that one. Crossed it off. So I've also, this year I was smart and I put the dates of release when those dates were announced. Even if the dates change, I can look at there and go, aha, yes, that is a thing that is coming. It's not an organised way of organising my TBR. Is your TBR mostly print or ebook? It is very definitely ebook format because that's mainly how I read fiction, is on my Kindle, or I listen to it. But even then, I do have a wish list on Audible too. But when I go to buy a book on Audible, user credit, I never look at my wish list. I don't even know why I keep one because I never refer to it. How do I determine which book from my TBR to read next? The vibe, what I'm feeling, and often I will look in my TBR and think, not today, and then find a new book. So the TBR is fairly useless to me. If I really want a book, I would just pre-order it because I have the funds to be able to pre-order it. A book that's been on my TBR the longest. I'm gonna have to think about this one. I had to go away and think about this one. So I perused the non-fiction shelves and I came up with this, Life in a Medieval City, which is by Francis Guy and Joseph Guy, perhaps. Sorry if that was a really bad pronunciation of your names. This is like a foundation work for thinking about how people lived. When was it published? 1969. So that's around about the time I'm going to get nerdy on you, in historiography, when people started to consider what was life like for like actual people on the ground, not just like great men and royalty and famous people, but everyday ordinary people, women, slaves, people of colour in Europe, and of course this extended to all of historiography, minority groups, all that, rose out of feminism. And so like it's a really old book, it's obviously older than me, but it's just something I haven't got around to yet. Maybe one day. I had to go and get my Kindle too. So hello to my Kindle. It's bright yellow so that I can find it under my pillow, or more often under my husband's pillow. But the thing about the Kindle is that it on mine is listed by most recent. So the last thing on my TBR is the 20-Man Trilogy by Robin Hobb. I have zero intention reading this book, but it's in my TBR because I own it on Kindle. So what is the TBR on there that I actually might read? Let's find that. I'm still scrolling. Like the fact that they're all still in here. I have Life in a Medieval City on my Kindle as well in the TBR. I should read it. I should just read it. So that's probably the thing in my TBR on my Kindle that I will actually read as well. Maybe. A book that I recently added to my TBR. What does the bullet journal say? McClellan in the Shadow of Lighting, but on the same day I added Davinia Evans, Notorious Sorcerer. I beta read this book and I'm so excited for my friend Dee to have her book published, because I've known her on the internet for genuinely 2 decades at this point. I'm so excited for her, so I'm excited to read that one. But under it on my list is Brian McClellan, who wrote the Powder Mage series. And this one I think is a bit more fantasy. A book in my TBR strictly because of its beautiful cover. That's this pile of unread non-fiction. Let me grab it for you. It's the reason I buy them. Sea monsters on medieval and Renaissance maps. Actually, I have a whole video about this because it's my non-fiction TBR video that I did. The medieval calendar, bestiary, the book of Bibles. Oh, I'm reaching over. Alchemy and mysticism. I don't know if I can lift this one. Activate core muscles. Oh. Is it Meetings with Remarkable Manuscripts? They're beautiful and I've not opened them. But as I said, I filmed a whole video about that at the start of this year or the end of last year, and I will link that in a cardy thing and also below. A book on my TBR that I never plan on reading is literally, I just told you, Robin Hobb. But let's keep going. What else is in this TBR list? Scroll right back to the end again. All right, Robin Hobb, the 20-Man Trilogy. Robin Hobb, Dragon Haven. So there's a dragon trilogy, I think, as well. None of them. Robin Hobb, Shaman's Crossing, Forest Maid, Renegades Magic. That's an omnibus. Oh, the Soldier Sun trilogy it's called. Why is this? Because I read the first Robin Hobb, which was Assassin's Quest, and I just got so mad at the main character. Fitz is a typical teenage boy, and I don't want to read about that. They're boring. They're stupid. So not that. The Dragon's Path, Daniel Abraham. Now I've got his new one in my TBR. I can't remember what it's called. I think I tried this one and wasn't vibing, or I might read it. Trudy Canavan, Thief's Magic, probably no. Freakonomics, probably no. The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, which I've heard so much good stuff about this trilogy, but my husband read it and he said there was trigger warnings specifically to things that I'm not comfortable reading, and that's fair. I don't want to read that. So I'm happy for it to be an amazing book that I never read. The Battle of Evernight by Cecilia Dart Thornton. Now, I think I have them on my shelf. I do, right behind me. There. I read the first 2 and a bit of the third, but I had borrowed them from people about 20 years ago and I just never finished it. I picked these up in a library sale. I picked this up on the Kindle, probably in a daily deal. Won't read it. Cushion's Dark, Jacqueline Carey. Now that is romance, isn't it? And romance is not the one for me. V.E. Schwab, A Gathering of Shadows. I read the first one of those. whatever it was called, and I didn't really like it. So Atlas Obscura, I mean, I might read that one. Laini Taylor, Strange the Dreamer, I tried it and I'm just not in the mood for YA. So that's unlikely to happen. The Song of Achilles, I read Cersei and it was fine. I got it in paperback, which I regretted. We're coming towards newer things that I might pick up. We're waffling now. What's the next question? An unpublished book on your TBR that you're excited for. Now, I already said about Dee's book, and I'm so excited for that. It's called Notorious Sorcerer. It's out in September. But a different one that is not my literal real life friend will be Guy Gavriel Kay. Let me find the name of it. All the Seas of the World, and I've just been on a real Guy Gavriel Kay kick for the last couple of years. I'm currently reading two, one on Kindle, one on audio, and I'm just really feeling his style at the minute. And I know that it will be like a 500-page epic in which diverse casts of characters are thrown together by circumstances, they influence each other's lives, and they move on. Not a happily ever after, usually with him. And I'm so excited for it. That is coming out in May, allegedly. A book on your TBR that basically everyone's read but you. I'm consulting the bullet journal again. I think that would be this one, 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City. Or on the Kindle, The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. I read the first two, but I really liked the first one. It had all the YA romance vibes that I was feeling right then. And then the second one just abandoned that. And I was really just there for the romance. Even though I literally just said romance isn't for me. YA romance is different because there's not often like the what's the word? I'm gonna have to Google it. There's not usually the consummation of the relationship. It's usually just like feels and kisses, and that's okay. It's when it's just like straight out sex on board. So where was I going? Oh yeah, The Empire of Gold. So I just wasn't feeling it, the last one. Now there's a fourth one and I don't know that I will get there either. A book on your TBR that basically everyone recommends to you. I guess that will be, according to my Kindle, it is Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari. I listened to the first one. I started reading the second one and I was like, So I don't think I'll actually read this one. I think if you are not a historian, it might be like mind-blowing, but it's just pop history, and the second one, Homo Deus, is just speculative history, and that's not my jam, so I probably won't read it, but I did pick it up in a Kindle Daily Deal. A book on your TBR that you're dying to read. Now, the reason I haven't read this is because I can't afford it. It's $100 at least. It's an academic text. It's called Medieval Religion and Its Anxieties by Thomas A. Fudge. And he was one of my supervisors at uni. And this is just short essays on different aspects of medieval religion and the way that people just freak out about it. There's a chapter in there about something I did a lot of work on, which was prosecution of animals. Locusts for killing for eating the crops, or a bear that terrorized the town. Although with the bear, I could talk about this forever. With the bear, they were going to put the bear on trial, and then it was decided maybe the bear needed to be judged by a jury of its peers, which just means more bears. So they abandoned that idea. So it's not something that I've read. It's something I could borrow from the uni library if I was a student. Currently not a student. So maybe one day I'll be able to read it. But it sounds super interesting. I read all the sample that Amazon will let me have, and maybe one day I can afford academic texts. How many books are on your TBR shelf? I'm going to have to open Storygraph and Goodreads for this as well. I just had a heart attack that I lost a whole bunch of footage, but I think we're okay. Anyway, so my Kindle TBR is 9 pages long. Oh, that doesn't include the samples. Ooh. Please hold caller. 50 in my TBR folder, 15 in my sample fiction, and 48 in my sample non-fiction. What is that in maths? That's 100, 115 minus 2, 113. I'd say there's approximately 20 actual physical books. There's 12. Let me check that. There's 18 on my Goodreads list. There's 25 on my Storygraph list. And on my actual, I wrote this down list, there is 1, 2, 3, 11. So let's round that out to, well, there'll be overlaps, won't there? So let's say 150. 150. That's reasonable, I think. That's really quite a conservative number. Alrighty, that's all the questions. I will leave them below. I will leave a link to Ariel's YouTube where I found this particular tag. She links to the original source, although that is protected now, that blog. So she's got all the questions. Thanks for hanging out with me to talk about books, and let me know down below some of your answers to this, or if you have anything to recommend to add to my pile, because clearly 150 books is not enough. See you next time. Bye.